Hey there! On today's episode, I'm going to be going over two different actions, movement and then superpowers that require an action in order to do them. As well, I'm going to go farther in depth with things like pushes, throws, and placing effects for characters. My name is Nate, and welcome to the Gamers Guild. First, let's start with the superpower actions because it's not nearly as intensive. Superpower actions are very much like any other superpower, but at the beginning of the text telling you what to do, the word action is in bold letters, like this. So far, all of the examples we have are active superpowers, and only 2 characters from the core set actually have them anyway. There isn't too much more to explain about it. The superpower will cost one of your actions for the turn, and if it has a power cost, you have to spend power equal to that amount. And then you just follow what the text says on the character card. But let's talk about movement. An advance is one of the 4 types of movement in the game, and it is probably the most common type of movement. This is when you will spend an action to move up to the length of your move speed, which is indicated at the top of the character's stat card. A notable exception to this if you are trying to move over, onto, or off of something larger than your character's size, like a building. In a case like this, it is normally considered a climb, and you'll have to swap out your normal movement tool to the short one. But otherwise, you'll be able to make your move as normal. However, if your character has the flatter wall crawler ability, then they can usually continue about with their normal speed, because they can fly, or web sling, or what have you. A couple of bullet points to hit while we're talking about an advance is that you always can downgrade your movement tools to get a better angle if you need to, and also that you can end your move anywhere along the movement template as long as the base is still touching the movement tool. The next types of movement worth talking about are not an action you can take like the advance, and more times than not are actually going to be the result of your opponent. They are throws and pushes. The player who's performing the throw or push will get to place the indicated movement tool with one end touching the character being thrown. The movement tool needs to be completely straight when performing this movement because the thrown character will then follow the movement tool until it meets the end of the movement tool where it is placed, or until the model would make base contact with another character or terrain piece. Also, read the effect of the throw or push carefully because sometimes it will specify if it needs to be a push away or push towards, in which case you'll need to set up a 90-degree angle to determine where the character can be moved within those limits. The only real difference between a push and a throw on a character is that a throw can cause a collision. A throw that a character collides with a terrain feature suffers 1 damage. The terrain feature is destroyed and removed from the table if it is a smaller size than the thrown character. And a thrown character that collides with another character suffers 1 damage. The other character must then make a dodge roll to avoid being damaged by that throw. And while we were talking about throwing and dodging, I think it's worth covering throwing terrain real quick as well. It is a very similar process, but instead of measuring from the terrain feature that is being thrown, like you would a character that is being thrown or pushed, you measure the range of the throw from the character who's doing the throwing. The main reason this is probably here is that way you don't have to worry about lining up the movement tool against something that doesn't actually have a base size with it. Then as far as determining how much damage that throw is going to cause, first you have to add 1 to the size of the terrain feature or the character thrown, and then the character that is defending against the throw, the character that is getting something thrown at, I guess, rolls dice equal to their physical defense value. You roll any additional dice for crits as normal in the dodge roll, and then you modify the dodge roll with special rules and effects. Unfortunately, things like Captain America's Vibranium Shield don't get to apply it because it specifically says it has to be used in defense rolls. However, Spider-Man's Spidey Sense mentions both defense rolls and dodge rolls, so you can still use abilities that say dodge. You then reduce damage from the collision by 1 for each critical, wild, and block rolled, and then you suffer any damage as normal. As well, you're going to get power from this as you would normally an attack or something like that. The last type of movement is a place. Like before, you cannot use an action to do a place like the advance, but usually a place effect is going to come from an effect like a team tactic card, superpower, or maybe even an attack. Now also you're going to use placing when placing objectives after a character has dropped it, so I'm going to refer to them as characters and or objects. Now usually it works this way unless it is specifically mentioned otherwise on the card, but you usually will just measure the range from the character or object being placed. The character or object may be placed anywhere within that range, and if the miniature can't physically fit or balance on top of a terrain feature, that character cannot end its movement there. So, that should cover all the different types of movement you will see your characters doing on the battlefield in Marvel Crisis Protocol. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me a message or just comment down below. Or if you needed that official answer, you can find Atomic Mass Games on Facebook or Discord or any of their other places. And the guys, as always, there have been great about answering questions. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and keep on gaming.